For more, joining me live in the Perth studio is Gordon Flake, the CEO of the Perth USAsia Centre. Gordon, good to see you as always. Thank you for your time. NATO countries opening their arms to Finland and Sweden. Just how significant is that?
Very significant. Just 6 months ago, only about 30% of the population in both Sweden and Finland were interested in joining NATO. And it tells you how much the world has shifted as a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And also, just a week ago, Turkey was opposed to both Sweden and Finland joining. And so this NATO summit has been quite substantive in a unified response to Russia, but also in the diplomatic coordination required to grow NATO in response to what's happening in Ukraine.
And NATO has also announced a surge of forces with the US to boost its military presence in Europe. There's a huge list of sorts of things they're doing, some of them more naval destroyers stationed in Spain, to F-35 fighter jet squadrons positioned in the UK. There's also this permanent headquarters in Poland. That's quite a big move as well. Will it serve as a deterrent to future Russian aggression into Europe?
Certainly, and it already is, right? I mean, the fact that Russia felt free to invade Ukraine is because it wasn't a member of NATO. And there are other nearby states, Latvia, Estonia, that I'm sure Russia would very much like to, and certainly has the ability in a much easier way than Ukraine invade. But the fact that they're members of NATO provides deterrence. That's what deterrence is. And NATO is an organization that just a few years ago was lacking relevance, and today is more relevant than ever before, not just in Europe, but globally.
NATO also had quite a bit to say on the issue of China, which we're all obviously paying close attention to here in Australia. It's warning essentially that that nation is rapidly building up its military, its nuclear arsenal. What scale are we talking about here when we're talking about China's military build-up?
Well, the important thing about what NATO has done is, for the first time in its strategic documents, has laid out its concerns about China. And the thing is, they're directly related to what's happening in Ukraine. The question is whether or not we abide by what we in Australia call the rules-based order, whether we respect the sovereignty of nations' borders, whether we abide by the international regimes and laws that kind of govern the behavior of nation states. And NATO is saying what we're seeing in Europe and in Ukraine in particular, gives us growing concern about the risks in the cross straits with Taiwan and in the South China Seas. And so it's quite natural, particularly given the fact that we had what we call the AP4, the Asia-Pacific Four, Japan, Korea, Australia, and New Zealand there at the NATO summit. That just gives you a sense that this is a shared interest. They're more about principles than any specific country.
What sort of reaction have we seen from Russia and China to what happened overnight? Has there been much blowback?
Not that we've seen yet. It's pretty expected. I mean, to be honest, the real shocking thing we've seen out of Russia this morning was Foreign Minister Lavrov on TV saying the quiet part out loud, saying, you know, the longer the Ukrainian military resists, the more we'll kill Ukrainian civilians, which is a bit of a shock, and it actually kind of clarifies what I was talking about before, the principles, right? These are, by definition, war crimes. And so to fail to respond to what is by definition war crimes or violations of international norms requires a national response.